November 8, 1950. Lieutenant Russell Brown is flying his F-80 Shooting Star over North Korea when his radar officer screams into the radio, "Make it 6 o'clock." Brown yanks his stick hard left. A silver streak flashes past his canopy, a MiG-15, the Soviet Union's newest fighter. What happens in the next 60 seconds will make history. This is the world's first jet versus jet air combat kill. And it is just the beginning of a 3-year war in the sky that will change air combat forever. This is MiG Alley. When World War II ended in 1945, the fastest fighters were still propeller-driven. The P-51 Mustang topped out at 440 miles per hour. By 1950, everything had changed. The Korean War erupted on June 25, 1950, when North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel. Within months, American pilots found themselves facing an enemy they'd never encountered before: jet fighters. The MiG-15 was a revelation. Designed by the Soviet Union and flown by North Korean, Chinese, and secretly Soviet pilots. It could fly at 668 miles per hour. It could climb to 50,000 feet. And it carried a 23mm cannons and 137mm cannon that could tear an aircraft apart with a single burst. The narrow stretch of airspace along the Yalu River between North Korea and China became known as MiG Alley. It was here that American and communist pilots fought for air superiority. In the world's first jet war, American pilots initially flew F-80 Shooting Stars, America's first operational jet fighter. But the F-80 was outmatched. The Air Force needed something better. They needed the F-86 Sabre. December 17, 1950, the F-86 Sabres arrived in Korea. On paper, the MiG-15 was superior. It could outclimb the Sabre. It could fly higher. It could turn tighter. Soviet engineers had built a world-class interceptor designed to shoot down American bombers. But the Sabre had advantages the Soviets didn't expect. First, the Sabre was more stable at high speeds. The MiG-15 had a tendency to snap into uncontrollable spins. American pilots learned to push their Sabres into high-speed dives, forcing MiGs to follow into unstable flight regimes. Second, the Sabre had better guns, 650 caliber machine guns. With a radar-ranging gun sight, American pilots could hit targets at longer ranges with better accuracy. Third, and most important, American pilots had better training. Many F-86 pilots were World War II veterans. They'd flown P-51 Mustangs over Germany. They'd survived hundreds of combat missions. They knew how to fight. The MiG pilots, many were inexperienced. North Korean pilots had minimal training. Chinese pilots were learning as they fought. Even the secret Soviet pilots, officially instructors but actually flying combat missions, couldn't match American experience. The result? A kill ratio that defied expectations. For every Sabre shot down, American pilots claimed 10 MiG-15s destroyed. May 20th, 1953. Captain Joseph McConnell is leading a flight of 4 F-86 Sabres deep into MiG Alley. McConnell already has 14 confirmed kills. He's America's leading jet ace. But today, he's hunting number 15 and 16. His radar warning receiver screams, "MiGs incoming." 8 of them. Tally-ho, MiGs at 10 o'clock high. McConnell brakes left, his wingman glued to his wing. The MiGs dive. McConnell reverses, pulling his Sabre into a climbing turn. His G-suit squeezes his legs, forcing blood to his brain. The MiG leader follows, a fatal mistake. At 30,000 feet, the MiG-15 has the advantage. But McConnell isn't fighting at 30,000 feet. He's forcing the fight down to 20,000 feet, where the Sabre performs better. The MiG tries to turn inside him. McConnell slams the throttle forward, pulls harder. His Sabre shudders on the edge of a stall. The MiG slides into his GUNSIGHT Fox 2. 650 caliber guns converge on the MiG's fuselage. Pieces fly off. The canopy shatters. The MiG rolls inverted and spins toward the ground. Kill number 15. Minutes later, McConnell spots another MiG trying to escape. He chases it to the Yalu River, the border he's not supposed to cross. The MiG pilot thinks he's safe. He's not. McConnell triggers a burst just before the border. The MiG explodes. Kill number 16. Joseph McConnell became the first American triple jet ace, 16 confirmed kills in the F-86 Sabre. He would never fly in combat again. 2 months later, while test flying an F-86 in California, his aircraft crashed. He died at age 33, but his legacy lives on. McConnell and pilots like him proved that in air combat, the pilot matters more than the machine. For decades, the United States suspected but couldn't prove that Soviet pilots were flying combat missions in Korea. American pilots reported hearing Russian over the radio. They noticed tactics that seemed sophisticated for inexperienced North Korean pilots. Some MiG-15s had Cyrillic markings hastily painted over. The Soviets denied everything. Officially, they were only advisors. The truth: entire Soviet air regiments rotated through bases in Manchuria, just across the Chinese border. They flew in North Korean markings. They spoke Chinese over the radio, or tried to. They were ordered never to fly over the ocean where they might be captured if shot down. Soviet records declassified after the Cold War revealed the extent of the deception. Over 70,000 Soviet military personnel served in Korea. At least 335 Soviet pilots were killed in action. The top Soviet ace in Korea, Nikolai Satyagin, claimed 21 kills, though American records don't support most of those claims. The Soviets inflated their numbers just as much as the Americans did. This was the Cold War's first hot war in the sky. Americans and Soviets killing each other while both governments pretended it wasn't happening. When the Korean War ended on July 27, 1953, the lessons of MiG Alley were clear. Jet combat was fundamentally different from propeller combat. Speeds were higher. Altitudes were higher. Pilot G-forces were more intense. The human body was being pushed to its limits. American pilots claimed 790 MiG-15s destroyed. Soviet and Chinese records suggest the real number was around 100. The Americans lost 78 F-86 Sabres in air combat. But the real victory wasn't about numbers. It was about proving that American pilots, American training, and American tactics could dominate even when flying an inferior aircraft on paper. MiG Alley taught lessons that shaped air combat for the next 70 years. Pilot skill matters more than aircraft performance. Training wins wars, and in the deadly dance of air combat, experience is the difference between life and death. The men who flew through MiG Alley wrote the rulebook for jet combat. Every fighter pilot who came after them owes them a debt. They were the first. They were the best. And they proved that in the skies over Korea, American airmen would not be beaten. If you want to hear more stories from the jet age of combat aviation, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. What other jet combat stories do you want us to cover? Leave a comment below and let us know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.